All right, today we're going to jump into one of the most powerful and honestly most misunderstood titles in the entire Bible. It's a phrase that's not just a title, but really the climax of a story that spans thousands of years, the Lamb of God.
Everything really kicks off with these incredible words from John the Baptist. He sees Jesus walking towards him and makes this declaration. Now, for the people standing there listening, this wasn't just some nice, poetic phrase. This was like a lightning bolt, packed with centuries of history and meaning.
So, you gotta ask, why a lamb? Of all things, why that? Because Lamb of God wasn't some new nickname John came up with on the spot. No, it was the grand finale, the final piece of a puzzle that shows God's unfolding plan for humanity. Let's dig into that story.
Okay, so to really get why a lamb was the solution, we first have to wrap our heads around the problem. And in the ancient world, it wasn't just about people making mistakes here and there. It was seen as something much deeper, a fundamental break in the fabric of creation.
At the very core of this problem was what you could call the guilt-punishment chain. The idea was that sin wasn't just a bad choice. It created a real spiritual barrier. It was like a wall that went up, damaging that essential covenant relationship between people and God.
And this is so important to understand. Atonement wasn't about humans trying to do things to calm down some angry, distant God. The scriptures show that from the very beginning, this was God's idea. God, acting as the faithful one in the relationship, always provided the way to tear down that wall and bring people back to become at one again.
You see, this idea of God providing a lamb as the solution didn't just pop up out of thin air with John the Baptist. It has these deep, powerful roots woven all the way through the Old Testament, acting like a shadow pointing towards something real that was still to come.
The first and maybe the most dramatic example is the Passover lamb back in Exodus. I mean, think about it. The blood of a perfect lamb, painted on a doorway, was the literal sign that saved the family inside from death. Right from the start, the lamb was God's provision for deliverance. Then you have the Day of Atonement, or Yom Kippur. This was a massive annual event where the high priest would go into the Holy of Holies to atone for the sins of the entire nation. It was this powerful reset, a cleansing, but the key was it had to happen again and again, year after year. So all these Old Testament sacrifices, these lambs, they weren't failures. They were absolutely foundational. They were part of this incredible long-term plan. They were the shadow designed to teach and prepare people, pointing forward to the day when the real thing would arrive. So with all that history as the backdrop, we come back to John the Baptist by the river. This is the moment. This is where centuries of prophecy, ritual, and God's promises all converge on one person. You can bet that when John pointed and said, "Behold the Lamb," his listeners' minds would have raced straight to the prophet Isaiah, specifically to the passages about the suffering servant, this figure who would quietly and innocently take on the sins of others, just like a lamb being led to the slaughter. Now get this, because this is amazing. The original Hebrew word from that passage in Isaiah is nasa, and it has this incredible double meaning. It means to bear, like to carry a heavy load on your back. But it also means to take away, to completely remove something. This is everything. The one who is coming wouldn't just carry sin, he would carry it away for good. And this just lays out the incredible fulfillment of that plan. The old system, the shadow, provided a necessary covering for sin. But John is declaring that the reality, the Lamb of God, does something so much more. He doesn't just sweep the problem under the rug. He removes it. He fulfills the entire promise wrapped up in that one word, nasa. And this fulfillment doesn't just wrap up the old plan, it blows it wide open, stretching the promise of salvation from just one nation to the entire world. This table just shows the continuity and the expansion so clearly. Look at the action. It goes from a temporary covering to a permanent removal. Then the frequency shifts from something you had to do every single year to a single once-for-all sacrifice. And then the most mind-blowing part, the scope. It explodes from being for the nation of Israel to being for the sin of the whole world. John gives us another crucial piece of the puzzle. He says he saw God's Spirit come down on Jesus, but here's the key word. He saw it remain. This wasn't a temporary visit, like with the old prophets who were anointed for a specific job. This meant Jesus was the permanent home, the lasting source of God's Spirit on earth. And the final piece of John's testimony is the title Son of God. What's so fascinating is seeing how the early church's own understanding of this got deeper and deeper. As the timeline shows, they first really got it at his resurrection. Then they pushed it back to his baptism, then all the way back to his birth. And finally, they understood he was the Son from before time even began. It was like a slow-motion revelation of this timeless truth. Which leaves us with this one last thought. John's call to them and to us wasn't to write an essay about the Lamb or win a debate about it. His invitation was much simpler, much more direct. It was just behold, to look, to see for yourself the one who is the living, breathing fulfillment of this huge, ancient, and perfectly connected plan. So what does it mean to just stop and behold?